The storm came without warning. One moment, calm silence cloaked the frozen wilderness. Then screams shattered the night, swallowed instantly by howling winds and blinding snow. Lives vanished beneath the white veil, leaving behind nothing but cold shadows and unanswered questions. Something ancient and merciless lurks beneath the ice, waiting for the next soul to wander too far, too alone. Tonight you will step inside the frozen nightmare and face what the storm hides. Are you ready to uncover the terrifying truth? Before we begin, make sure to follow and support this channel for more chilling stories that will haunt your darkest nights. You never really understand silence until you're 50 miles from the nearest town, and the snow starts falling without a sound. Megan Ellis wasn't scared when she first arrived at the cabin. She'd booked it online, a rustic 2-bedroom tucked into the edge of a national forest in Montana. No neighbors for miles. That was the point. She wanted quiet. Escape. Just her camera, some books, and a few weeks of total solitude. The gravel road leading up to the place was barely a road at all. Her SUV had struggled the last mile, fishtailing on the early frost. But once she saw the cabin, perched against a backdrop of pine and rock, the kind of place people posted on Instagram with words like cozy and healing, she felt something settle in her chest. Relief. She hadn't realized how much she needed to disappear for a while. The first few days were uneventful. Peaceful, even. She woke up to soft sunlight over frozen fields. Brewed coffee. Took photos of deer tracks in the snow. Started sketching again. For the first time in months, her heart rate felt normal. Locals in town had warned her when she picked up groceries. Storms hit quick up here, one cashier said, scanning canned soup and firewood. You hear that wind moaning, you stay inside. Roads disappear in hours. Megan had just smiled. She was from Seattle. She'd seen rain, sleet, ice. She figured they were just being dramatic. But on the third night, the wind changed. It came in soft at first, whistling through the trees like a breath. Then it picked up. Louder. Angrier. By midnight, it was howling so hard the windows rattled. Megan stood by the glass, watching flurries whip against the porch light. Visibility dropped to 0 in seconds. She wasn't worried. Not yet. She tossed another log into the fireplace, wrapped herself in a blanket, and tried to sleep. The next morning, her phone said no service. Not one bar. She stepped outside. The cold punched her lungs. Snow already blanketed her SUV. The path to the main road was completely gone. Just a sea of white. Still, she didn't panic. She had enough supplies to last. The power was on. The cabin's Wi-Fi flickered, but it worked just enough to send a text to her sister back home. Storm hit. Totally snowed in. Kind of amazing. That message never got delivered. By the 5th day, the snow was waist deep. The Wi-Fi was gone. So was the signal. She tried the landline, but it just clicked dead air. That night, something knocked on the back door. 3 short knocks. Then silence. She froze. No one was supposed to be out here. Not this far. Not in this storm. She grabbed her flashlight, heart hammering, and crept through the hallway to the kitchen. The door was shut. Locked. The snow outside looked undisturbed. No footprints. No tracks. Just smooth, untouched white. She stood there, breathing hard. Maybe the storm knocked something loose. A branch or... Then it knocked again. 3 short knocks. Same rhythm. Same place. Her breath clouded in the cold. The fireplace had died out. She didn't open the door. She just stood there, in the dark, staring at it. Listening. But nothing followed. Only silence. Heavy. Pressing. Waiting. By morning, the world outside was gone. The snow had risen overnight, swallowing the porch steps, piling halfway up the windows. Megan tried to open the front door, but it wouldn't budge. It had frozen shut. She wrapped a towel around her hand and banged at it, but the wood barely moved. She stood there in silence, watching white swirl endlessly beyond the glass. No roads. No trees. Just a flat, motionless landscape under a thick gray sky. Her phone was still dead. No Wi-Fi. The cabin's backup generator rumbled faintly behind the house, but it was unreliable. It flickered the lights now and then, like it was thinking about quitting. She tried the landline again. Still nothing. No dial tone. Not even static. She told herself this was fine. Normal. Exactly what she had signed up for. Remote peace. Just her and nature. But she kept thinking about the knocking. She hadn't dreamt it. She was sure of that now. It had been too real. The way it stopped so abruptly. The silence that followed. It was like someone had wanted her to come to the door, and then decided against it. Later that afternoon, Megan spotted something strange. She was boiling water for tea when she looked up and froze. There, just beyond the edge of the tree line, stood a dark figure. Still. Unmoving. It stood facing her window. Head tilted slightly, like it was listening. She blinked. Wiped the fog from the glass. But when she looked again, it was gone. She stepped outside, boots crunching in the snow, breath sharp in the cold. She scanned the trees. Nothing. She moved closer to where the figure had been. But there were no tracks. No prints. Not even a broken branch. Just clean, perfect snow. That night, it knocked again. 3 knocks. The same rhythm. The same place. But this time, Megan didn't move. She sat on the floor near the fireplace, blanket pulled tight, staring at the dark hallway. She waited. Counted seconds. Minutes. Then she heard something new. A scrape. Like nails, or fingers, dragging slowly across the wood outside the door. Then a low creak. As if the door was testing its hinges. Megan crawled over to the window and peeked outside. Still no footprints. Not one. She backed away, her breath shallow, eyes locked on the hallway. At 3:17 a.m., the cabin went completely dark. No lights. No heat. Just the sound of wind screaming through the trees, and the faint click of the door latch shifting. By morning, the generator sputtered back to life on its own. The lights flickered weakly. The heater buzzed. The fridge groaned like something inside had died. Megan sat at the edge of the bed, wrapped in 2 blankets, staring at the back door. It was still locked. Still shut. But something about it felt different now. Like it had been tested. She hadn't slept. Not really. She kept waiting for the knocks to come again. But they didn't. Just after noon, someone knocked at the front door. A single knock. Then a voice. "Hey! It's Tyler! You decent in there?" She hesitated. Then bolted for the door, heart racing. She fumbled the lock and swung it open. Tyler Green stood there, red-faced from the cold, holding a thermos in one hand and a snow shovel in the other. His beard was frosted, his boots buried in snow up to his shins. "Thought I'd check in," he said. "Saw the power lines down up the ridge. You holding up okay?" Megan tried to hide the relief in her voice. "You have no idea how glad I am to see you." He stepped inside, stomping snow from his boots. The cabin creaked as the door shut behind him. "Roads are trashed," he said, setting the thermos on the table. "You're not getting out for a while." He poured her coffee without asking. Megan sipped it, watching him. Something about his eyes felt off. They kept flicking toward the back of the cabin. Toward the hallway. The door. "You see anything weird out here?" she asked. He paused. "Weird how?" She swallowed. "Like people. At night. Or noises. Knocking." Tyler didn't answer right away. He walked over to the window and stared out. "Sometimes the window play tricks," he said finally. "When the drifts get deep enough, sound bounces. Echoes. You think you hear someone when it's just trees cracking in the cold." "That's not what I asked." He turned, and for a second, his expression changed. The easy smile dropped. His face looked older. Tired. "Don't open the door at night," he said quietly. "No matter what you hear." She stared at him. "Why not?" Tyler just shrugged. "Animals. Strays. Desperate people. Happens more than you'd think out here." "But," she started. He held up a hand. "Just listen. Keep it shut. You hear something, let it knock. That's it." He stayed another 10 minutes, fixed the loose shutter, then left. Megan watched him walk back into the woods, his figure swallowed by snow within seconds. That night, she sat by the fire with a flashlight and a knife. At 3:17 a.m., the knocking came back. 3 knocks. From the back door. Then silence. Then, her own voice. Soft. Muffled. "Tyler? Are you there?" She didn't move. Didn't breathe. The voice spoke again. "It's me. Megan. I'm locked out." She stared at the door. Trembling. She was inside. Alone. But outside, something with her voice was waiting. Megan didn't sleep that night. She sat on the kitchen floor, flashlight off, knife gripped tight in her hand. The fire had died hours ago, and a cold was sinking into her bones. But she didn't dare move. Not while her own voice kept whispering from behind the door. "Let me in. I'm freezing. Please." It sounded scared. Broken. But it was wrong. Off. Too slow. Like someone trying to remember how to sound human. After what felt like hours, the voice stopped. She waited. 10 minutes. 20. Nothing. By sunrise, the cabin was silent again. Still no signal. No power this time. The generator had completely failed. She threw on her coat, scarf, and boots, then stepped outside to find the fuel tank. What she saw in the snow made her stop cold. Tracks. Not boot prints. Not from any animal she knew. Bare feet. Dozens of them. Some small. Some huge. All spaced strangely. As if whatever had made them had moved without rhythm or weight. They circled the cabin. Every wall. Every window. The back door was covered in scratches. And at the edge of the trees, just barely within her sight, something stood watching her. She blinked, and it was gone. Her breath hitched. She backed toward the cabin, not taking her eyes off the woods. When she got inside, she locked everything. Windows. Doors. Even the attic hatch. Later, she pulled out her camera and zoomed in on the tree line from the window. She snapped photo after photo, hands shaking. When she reviewed them, most were nothing but snow and branches. But in one, behind a thin screen of trees, there was a face. Half hidden. Pale. Expressionless. Staring right into the lens. She zoomed closer. Its mouth was open. Not in a scream, but like it was imitating one. Megan slammed the camera down and backed away. Her mind raced. Was she losing it? Was this isolation driving her insane? She thought about driving, but her SUV was buried. Useless. The main road would be impossible to follow on foot through snow this deep. She was trapped. That night she slept in the living room with the fire roaring and every light on. At exactly 3:17 a.m., the knocking returned. But this time, it came from every wall. Not just the door. Not just one spot. It surrounded her. 3 knocks, in perfect sync. Over and over. Left wall. Right wall. Window pane. Attic. And then, one single knock came from inside the house. Somewhere upstairs. Megan didn't want to move. The knock had come from directly above her, sharp and clean, like a knuckle tapping wood. Then silence again, thick and choking. She stared at the ceiling. The attic hatch in the hallway hadn't been touched since she arrived. It was barely more than a square of wood with a frayed cord dangling from it. She hadn't even thought to look up there. Now she couldn't stop thinking about it. She forced herself off the couch. Slowly, quietly, she walked to the hallway, her flashlight aimed at the hatch. The house creaked under her steps. The wind had died down outside. The quiet made everything worse. She reached up and tugged the cord. The hatch dropped open with a groan. A cold draft blew down from the darkness above, smelling faintly of rot and dry dust. She waited. Nothing moved. Then, slowly, she raised the flashlight and shined it into the attic. It was empty. Wooden beams. Insulation. A few dusty crates. But in the far corner, just barely visible, was something new. A blanket. Folded neatly. And next to it, a child's toy. A small plastic horse with one eye missing. Her heart skipped. She climbed the ladder with one hand gripping the flashlight and the other clenched around her knife. Every rung creaked under her weight. She paused just below the attic floor and listened. No movement. No breathing. Just that cold, still air. She pulled herself up. Something was definitely wrong. The space was too clean. The dust disturbed. The air thick. She crouched near the toy, eyes darting around, when she noticed the corner beam behind her had deep scratch marks. Long, parallel grooves carved into the wood. Like fingernails. Or claws. Suddenly, from the floor below, she heard the front door rattle. Then a voice, soft and low. "Megan!" She scrambled back toward the hatch, slipped halfway down the ladder, nearly falling. She yanked it shut behind her and sprinted to the door. Still locked. Still bolted. But the knob was moving. Slowly. Deliberately. Like someone on the other side was testing it. Then it stopped. She backed away, panting. A second later, a hand slapped against the window beside the door. It was pale. Thin. Long fingers splayed wide, pressing hard enough to leave a foggy print on the glass. She couldn't see a face. The hand slid down slowly. Then disappeared. Megan stood frozen, her body buzzing with fear. The silence stretched. Then, knocks again. Not at the door. Not at the walls. From inside the attic. 3 sharp, slow knocks. As if something had waited for her to return to the living room. And now, it wanted her to come back up. Megan didn't go back up. She stayed curled on the floor beside the fireplace until the first signs of daylight crept in through the frozen windows. Even then, she couldn't shake the feeling that something was still awake above her. Watching. Listening. By late morning, she'd had enough. She dug through the old closet near the kitchen and found a rusted snow shovel and a pair of half-frozen snowshoes. It wasn't ideal, but it would do. She needed to get out. She needed to find help. Or at the very least, Tyler. She layered up, pulled on the snowshoes, and forced the door open with her shoulder. It groaned against the weight of the snow but gave way. The world outside was quiet. Still. Too still. No wind. No birds. Just the sound of her own breath. She followed the road, if it could still be called that. It was buried under a smooth white sheet, but she remembered the general direction Tyler had come from. She walked for an hour. Then 2. No signs of life. No houses. Just trees, heavy with snow, leaning in around her like silent sentinels. Then, just past the bend in the trees, she saw something that made her stop cold. Tracks. Human tracks. Bootprints, deep and clear. Heading into the woods at an angle. They weren't hers. They were fresh. Maybe from the night before. She followed them. The trail led deeper into the trees, away from the main path. After a few minutes, the prints stopped, abruptly. No return path. No sign of struggle. Just one final print, and then nothing. Like the person had been lifted straight out of the snow. She turned back, hard thudding. But as she turned, something caught her eye near a thicket of frozen brush. A shape beneath the snow. She dropped to her knees and brushed it away. Fabric. She dug faster, ignoring the sting of cold on her fingers, until she uncovered a jacket. Then an arm. It was a man. Face down. Skin pale blue. Tyler. His eyes were wide open, frozen in terror. His mouth hung open like he'd been screaming. Megan stumbled back, falling into the snow. Her mind reeled. He'd just been at the cabin 2 days ago. Talking. Laughing. Warning her. But this body was older. The jacket, ripped. Blood-stained. There was no way he'd survived that long out here. Her thoughts raced. If Tyler was here, dead, then who had she let inside? What had spoken to her? What had warned her not to open the door? She heard a noise behind her. A low, rattling breath. She turned slowly. A figure stood among the trees. Not moving. Not speaking. Just watching. Then it took one step forward, and vanished into the snow without a sound. Megan ran. She didn't think. She didn't plan. She just ran, through the snow, over roots and drifts. The image of Tyler's frozen face burned into her memory. She wasn't alone out here. Had never been alone. Whatever she'd been speaking to in that cabin, it wasn't Tyler. She followed the barely there trail back toward the house. But everything looked different. The trees too close. The shadows too deep. She wasn't sure if it was the fear or the storm clouds building again, but the daylight was vanishing fast. It took her nearly 40 minutes to make it back. She collapsed at the porch steps, gasping, snow clinging to her coat and lashes. The door was open. Just an inch. She knew she hadn't left it that way. Her heart pounded. She stepped inside slowly, every part of her screaming to run the other way. The fire had died again. The living room was dark, save for the last glow of embers. It smelled off. Like old meat and damp wood. She crept forward. The silence inside was worse than the storm outside. Her boots crunched lightly against a patch of ice that hadn't been there before. A trail of wet footprints led from the door, into the kitchen. Bare feet. She reached for her flashlight again. Click. Nothing. Click, click. Dead. She grabbed a candle from the mantel and lit it with trembling fingers. The flame flickered wildly as she stepped toward the kitchen doorway. No one. But something had been there. Every cabinet stood open. The fridge door hung wide. The back window had a smear across it, as if someone, or something, had pressed its face against the glass. And then she saw it on the wall above the kitchen table. Words, smeared in something dark and sticky. written with fingers that dragged unevenly. "Don't let it in." She backed away slowly, her legs shaking. Upstairs, the attic hatch creaked. She looked up just as the cord began to sway on its own, side to side. Something thumped softly above the ceiling. Then again. The noise became a slow dragging sound, as if something heavy was being pulled across the attic floor. It stopped directly above her. The ceiling boards flexed with a subtle weight. She didn't wait to see what came next. Megan ran back out into the storm. The wind had picked up again. Snow fell thick and fast, turning everything into a swirling wall of white. But she couldn't go back in that house. Not now. Not with it in there. Megan pushed through the storm, half blind, the cold gnawing at her fingers. She didn't know where she was going, only that she had to get away. From the cabin. From the attic. From the thing pretending to be someone she trusted. The wind howled like a living thing. Snow slapped her face in gusts. The woods around her shifted in the whiteout, trees bending like twisted silhouettes. Her vision blurred. She stumbled into a clearing without realizing it. A wide, circular space where the snow had settled strangely. Too smooth. Too perfect. Then she saw them. Figures. Half buried in the snow. 5. No, 6. People. Some faced up. Some lay curled. Their skin pale as bone, eyes open, lips frozen mid-scream. They looked freshly dead, but untouched by time or animals. Not a drop of blood. Not a sign of struggle. She stepped closer. Their clothes were from different times. Different styles. One woman wore a parka that looked like it belonged to the 1980s. A man in a sheriff's jacket had a radio clipped to his belt, long out of date. A teenage girl clutched a cracked cell phone, screen still dimly lit but frozen. Megan's breath caught in her throat. She wasn't the first. This thing, whatever it was, had been here for years. Decades, maybe. Feeding on people like her. Drawing them in with storms. Isolating them. Breaking them down. Her foot caught on something hard just beneath the snow. She bent down and brushed it away. A metal sign, bent and half-rusted. She wiped the ice from its surface. It read, "Property of Deep Hollow Research Facility. Restricted access." Her pulse quickened. She looked up. Not far beyond the trees, barely visible through the falling snow, she saw it. A structure. A squat, concrete building buried halfway into the hill. No lights. No sounds. Its roof nearly collapsed under the weight of years. But a place like that might have a radio. A backup generator. A way out. She ran for it. Every step deeper into the woods felt like a choice she couldn't undo. Like the forest was watching. Like the cold itself was alive and pulling at her. She reached the door and yanked it open. Inside was pitch dark. She lit her last match. Faint shapes emerged, desks. File cabinets. An old medical cot. And something else. A control panel against the far wall. She ran to it. Brushed away a layer of frost. A single switch blinked red. Power override. Emergency use only. She flipped it. Nothing. Then, somewhere deep in the building, a low hum began to rise. Lights flickered weakly to life overhead. And with them, something began to move in the hall beyond. Not footsteps. Something slower. Like flesh dragging across cement. The flickering lights cast long shadows down the empty corridor. Megan's heart pounded as the sound grew closer, a wet, scraping noise that made her skin crawl. She gripped the flashlight tighter, her breath forming clouds in the frigid air. She moved toward the hallway, each step echoing unnervingly. The building smelled of damp concrete and old medicine. Papers littered the floor, some stamped with dates decades old. The sound was right behind her now, slow and deliberate. She risked a glance over her shoulder. Nothing. Just darkness. She pressed forward, searching for any sign of a working radio or phone. Then she saw it, a room labeled Research Lab. Inside, dusty machines sat dormant, screens cracked, wires tangled. But on a desk lay a notebook. She opened it carefully. The entries were old, written in hurried scrawl by someone named Dr. Harris. It described experiments with an unknown parasite found deep beneath the snow, something that affected the mind and body, spreading fear and hallucinations. The last entry was scrawled in desperate handwriting. It's awake. It's hungry. The storm is its cover. If you find this, do not bring it inside. It mimics voices, faces, people we lost. It waits for the door to open. Megan's breath caught. She reread the warning. It was here all along. The thing in the snow. The thing knocking at the attic hatch. She heard the scraping again, closer now. The lights flickered violently, then went out. Darkness swallowed the room. The temperature plunged. Megan's flashlight flickered once, then died. She was alone. And the thing was here. Cold darkness pressed in from every side. Megan's breath hitched as the silence stretched, broken only by the slow, dragging sound inches away. Her hands fumbled for anything, to defend herself. A faint glow appeared at the edge of her vision. A shape. Not human. Limbs twisted in impossible angles, its face shifting like cracked ice. Sometimes a man, sometimes a woman, always wrong. It whispered her name, 1,000 voices blending into one chilling sound. Megan stumbled backward, heart hammering. The creature moved with unnatural speed, closing the distance. She slammed the door behind her, breath freezing in her throat as it slammed shut. Trapped. The emergency power flickered weakly, revealing scratched walls marked with desperate warnings. Do not open. It waits. Never trust the voice. Her mind raced. The attic. The cabin. Tyler's frozen face. She understood now. The storm wasn't natural. It was a shroud. A trap. A prison for those who didn't listen. Megan sank to the floor, clutching the notebook. Outside, the wind screamed, the snow swallowing everything whole. And somewhere deep beneath the ice, the thing waited. Hungry. Silent. Frozen dread.